Hey everyone, this is Jessica Rice, Communications Director at Renaissance Church, bringing you our sixth and final episode of our special podcast series called Real Love Conversations. These conversations have been running as a complement to our church's Real Love sermon series. And if you haven't had a chance to catch all of those sermons, I highly recommend you scroll through our feed and give each one a listen. Each message in the series has been equal parts challenging, encouraging, and enlightening for me as I think about my relationships and what it looks like for me to love others well in the way God calls us to. And then these real love conversations have been so great as we've gotten to hear people from the Renaissance community share honestly and really vulnerably about their relationship experiences, whether that's been in singleness, in marriage, in dating, or in divorce. We obviously haven't been able to cover every kind of relationship experience out there, but I've found points of connection in every story we've heard. And honestly, I'm even more convinced of how special of a community Renaissance Church is. In this final episode of Real Love Conversations, I'm joined by the one and only Jordan Rice, our church's lead pastor and my husband. If you've been around Renaissance for a while, you likely know that Jordan and I have a unique love story in that we were both married in our 20s to different people, and we were both also widowed in our 20s. This is a slightly longer episode, but that's because Jordan and I share some of our story, including parts that we would normally talk about maybe in a one-on-one conversation with people, but not necessarily from the stage on Sundays. And we also asked you all to submit questions for us to answer, and you guys had a lot of really good questions. So we felt it was important to try our best to answer all of those. So with all of that said, I'm glad you're here, and here's my conversation with Jordan. Okay, so we're here with Jordan Rice.
Yes, in the building, in the booth.
In the booth. How you feeling?
Feeling pretty good.
Okay, well, we are excited for this. This is episode 6 in this Real Love Conversation series, and we are going to be talking about real love. We have a lot of different questions that have been submitted from people at Renaissance. We're going to talk about dating. We're going to talk about heartbreak and loss. We're going to talk about conflict and marriage. And so I think it's going to be really good.
Conflict, so
oh boy, here we go. So, right. This is not a therapy session. Right. Let's just be clear about that.
Okay, good.
But Jordan, you are the lead pastor of Renaissance. You also happen to be married to me.
Yes, I am.
Yes. We've been married for, do you know how long?
I know it hasn't been 10 yet.
Oh, okay. Yes,
because we haven't had that party.
That's true. It's been almost 8.5 years that we've been married. And we're going to talk a little bit about our stories while we're here. We're going to go through as many questions as we can. And so before we do all of those things, though, I'm thinking it could be really helpful. We've had these conversations. We've had this sermon series on real love. And I think it would be great just to hear from you as our lead pastor about why you even felt like this real love relationship series was important for our community.
Both practically and spiritually, the essence of our life is done in relationships. So like when they asked Jesus, what's the most important command? He said to love the Lord God with all your might, your soul, your strength, and your heart. And then to love your neighbor as yourself. And I just don't think that we have been equipped in the church to really have good, healthy relationships, both in our expectations of what those should look like, and really to have a radically different understanding of what real love is, not the fake stuff. So that's a real, from a spiritual perspective and from a practical perspective, there's just so many times I'm talking to someone, I'm like, I want to just grab them by the arms and shake them, say like, yo, you just need to do this. And I wanted to have a conversation over a number of weeks where we can outline a little bit of what that could look like in their life to improve some of the relationships that we're having and the way that we experience relationships, whether that's with a significant other or a coworker or a roommate or whatever. And still a lot more to be done, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, of course. It's like this series could go on and on and on, right? But we're trying our best to do our best in 8 weeks. But I think it's been phenomenal. So thank you for leading us in this way. Okay, so a lot of people who've maybe been around Renaissance since the church launched in 2014 have maybe heard you and I share a bit of our stories on stage. It's been a while since we've done that.
Yeah, a couple of years at least.
It's been a couple of years at least. And we kind of reference it here or there. Sometimes when you're preaching, you'll say, you know, I'm widowed. My wife is also widowed, and then we got married. So, and
it's always interesting to see the alarm from the first time visitor who's looking with
poor them.
Sad eyes.
I know. So I was thinking that it would probably be helpful for us to share a bit of our story, catch people who might be newer up. But also it's kind of fun doing this real love conversation thing, because maybe we can share pieces of our story that
the juicy part,
the juicy fun parts or funny parts
that's not fit for the stage,
that don't really get shared on stage. And by talking about those parts, we actually probably will answer some of the dating questions and relationship questions that people had for us. So I figure I'll start with my story. So I got married in May 2009 to a man named Jerron. I was 26 years old. He was 29. We had dated for a couple of years and been engaged for a year before getting married. And in my mind, he was pretty much the perfect person for me. And about 2.5 months after we had been married, one night after work for both of us, I'm home, chilling, unwinding from the day. He loved riding motorcycles, and he was out for a ride with his friends, not far from home. And there was a knock on the door, and it was the girlfriend of one of the friends that he'd been out with that night. And she told me that Jerron had been in an accident, and like immediately my body is in full alarm mode, but she tells me, no, don't worry, he's okay. Hop in my car. I'll give you a ride to the hospital so you can see him. So I get to the hospital. One of his friends meets me in the parking lot. He's really broken up, kind of crying, but saying he's going to be okay. He has a broken foot, you know, but he's going to be okay. I get into the hospital. I'm greeted by a nurse who immediately takes us into one of the family rooms. And he's saying, you know, I just need you to be strong right now. And I'm kind of confused by that comment from this nurse. Like, okay, yeah, I can be strong, but what exactly do I need to be strong about? Like, aren't we talking about a broken foot here? And he said, no, I need you to be strong because the doctors are doing everything that they can. And I'm like, okay, again, they're doing everything they can to fix a broken foot. And he tells me, no, they're doing everything they can to keep him alive. And at that moment, I jump on the phone with my mom. I tell her we have to pray that Jerron's in an accident. I hang up with her, and it's not long that the doctor enters the room, asks for me, and tells me that they had done everything that they could, but that he was sorry that Jerron had died. And immediately I am like, no, there's absolutely no way. You have to go back. You need to do something else. Obviously, there's nothing that can be done. And like the grown men, his friends are around me in the family room. They're crying and covering their faces, and family members are coming. I have to call his parents and break the news. And ultimately I have to leave the hospital that night, and he is not coming home with me. And so, there I was. And I often say, like, in that moment, as a 26-year-old widow, I'm like, what is happening and what comes next?
Wow. Yeah, it's wild because about a week after that, or whenever you posted on Facebook, one of my friends comes into the living room with his computer, and I was with Danielle and with the group of friends in Baltimore. And my boy comes in and he's like, yo, we have to pray for this young woman because her husband just died in a motorcycle accident. And I remember that night talking to Danielle. We were about to get married probably a month or two after that. And I was like, I don't know how this woman is not like in an insane asylum right now, because I would have lost my mind if that were me. And me and Danielle prayed for you that night. And never in a billion years would I have imagined that I'd be sitting across from you right now doing a podcast.
So wild.
Very wild. And I've heard that story. I've heard you tell that story 50 times now, and I still kind of get chills and like in disbelief that that's what happened to you. It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got married to Danielle about a month or two after that happened.
It was like maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was like 3 weeks.
3 weeks later, you guys got married.
Yeah, because it was, June. And we got married in Baltimore. And when I first met Danielle, I remember the first night talking to her on the phone and being like blown away of like someone of her stature and her character and how cool she was and how sure of herself she was. And I had never to that point dated anybody like that. So I remember like falling for her hard and fast. And I'm a sucker.
Mm-hmm.
And we got married a couple years after we met. And she was someone who's always healthy. She didn't really like junk food. She'd always get on me for, eating chocolate cake and stuff like that and candy, sneaking candy in the house. But about 10 months after we got married, she got sick. And at first we thought that she was actually pregnant because she was waking up in the middle of the night and just like wake up with what we thought was morning sickness and nausea and just kind of like weak and just general malaise. So I went to the, pharmacy excited, like, well, I wasn't ready to be a dad yet, but man, this is great.
Mm-hmm.
Came home with some pregnancy tests and none of them were positive. So we ended up going to the doctor a couple of days after she was still feeling sick. And the doctor said, oh, don't worry. There's like this chest virus thing going around. This is pre-COVID days when you could have a virus and people would say, don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
There's this virus thing going around, clear itself in a couple of days. A couple of weeks later, I remember walking up the stairs of our apartment and she was always in good shape, but like she could not walk up a flight of stairs. So that night again, she got sick. And then we said, man, let's just go to the hospital. Got to the hospital and they were again saying, oh, don't worry. There's this chest virus thing going around, but there is some fluid around your heart. So we have to admit you to the hospital. And that was kind of scary to be admitted to the hospital. She was 25 at the time and had never really been sick a day in her life. And we were there for a couple of days and every day she got worse and worse. So much so that they had to move her to the ICU. And one day in the ICU, I'll never forget looking at the heart rate monitor and her heart rate just laying down was in the 140s. And now with an Apple Watch who monitors my workouts, I know like, man, if your heart rate is 140 something, you're moving, you're actually doing something. And that was her heart rate just laying down. And one day we were still at the hospital and one of the nurse technicians came in and she said, listen, I'm not supposed to do this, but those doctors have no idea what they're doing with your wife. She's going to die here. And I remember being so terrified. I called my mother immediately. I said, Mom, we got to move her to a different hospital. And we were in a hospital in Yonkers or somewhere in Westchester. And by the grace of God, we found a hospital. We knew a doctor that could get her transferred to Columbia. And Columbia Presbyterian, one of the best heart hospitals in the country. And as soon as we got to Columbia, the surgeon took one look at her records and said, we're doing surgery. We're doing surgery tonight. And it went from just like, well, we'll see what we're going to do to we're having heart surgery tonight. And for the first time, they stopped saying, don't worry. And then they were saying, well, it should be about 45 minutes. And 45 minutes came and went, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours came and went. And the doctor came out with this crazy look on his face of like, and put his hand on my shoulder. And I was like almost buckled into the ground.
Yeah.
And he says, Mr. Rice, she's stable now, but we almost lost her. And what I see in her chest right now, I've never seen that before. And 5 days later, we found out that she had an incurable, inoperable tumor on her heart called primary cardiac angiosarcoma. And they told her she only had about 2 or 3 weeks to live from that point. And thankfully, we had more time with her. She was much braver than I'll ever be and lived 10 months and died 10 months later. And yeah, you leave the hospital that night and you're like, what do I do next?
Yeah. Whew. Yes. Everything you said about having heard the story dozens of times and it's still kind of hitting hard and making me tear up is completely true. So after going through all of that, I'm sure there was some time. I know there was some time. I know you. I know there was some time before you decided to explore the possibility of dating again, being in a relationship again, being married again. What was that process like for you?
Mine was unique because cancer steals a lot from you. It steals your health. It steals your appearance in some cases. It steals your strength, but it gave us the opportunity of time and conversations. And Danielle was very gracious to give me the gift of a conversation to tell me exactly what she wanted me to do with my life. And I don't know what strength it took to say those words to me through tears. But I was very clear about like what she wanted my life to look like. And that was a gift to me. So for me, it wasn't what I would do. It was when I would do it and when I would move forward. And so much of it was, as long as I was miserable, I knew that was a terrible time to like move forward and try to pick up people. I was always like terrified of like going out on a date and being there just like crying at the table for no reason. If the waiter's like, "Do you want butter?" And I'm like, and I just break down crying at Cheesecake Factory because Danielle loved the brown bread or something like that.
Yeah, that brown bread is amazing.
It is amazing. It'll make you cry for different reasons. But so one of my biggest litmus tests is when I was actually joyful again. Like when could I enjoy life and enjoy what new opportunities could await me?
Yeah, it felt like there was maybe space to also let a person in when you were able to let more of the joy in.
And actually, very practically speaking, it was also asking my therapist. Shout out to Dr. Rath, my therapist. She, in a lot of ways, walked me through a lot of very complex situations. And I would just ask her, "Hey, do you think I don't know, this happened. What do you think about this?" And even though most of the time she doesn't give me advice, in that scenario, she really did help steer me. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, for me, I was in a really dark and numb place, honestly, after Jerron died, and just so shocked by everything that was happening. And I didn't have those final conversations about what life should look like for me. And I so wish I had that. I think that I wrestled a lot with what is it that you want me to do? Do you want me to date? Would he have wanted me to date? Would you not want me to date? What do I do? And I think for me, there was a difference between dating, which in my numb state, it was like, maybe there were people that I would go on a date with because they asked and I was like, whatever, I don't care. Maybe it's better than just being in the house. And then a difference between that and then coming to a place maybe 18 months later of I may actually want to be in a relationship again and get married and have children. Like in my mind, it was almost like a means to an end, if nothing else, that
Definitely.
I would need to get into a relationship and get married in order to have children, which was something that I wanted. So, but I don't think I ever expected to meet someone that I would be as excited about as I was with Jerron. Would be a nice person who I liked and my family liked, but I don't know that I would feel like, oh, this is the person for me, or really excited and passionate about that person.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, for me, it was a little bit of a question of the excitement, but also that Danielle and I had lived through so much together that at that point, I couldn't imagine being close to someone like I was to Danielle. So like to get the diagnosis, to hold each other in the hospital and cry together, and to have those moments where you cherish every single moment, I just thought to myself, well, how can I'm not going to go from that to like a dinner at Fridays, like asking someone, how was your day? Or, like, oh, what do you like to do for fun? It just felt like that would be impossible in so many different ways. So that was like a big obstacle for me in terms of thinking like that I would be with someone and really deeply connect with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so then about 18 months after Danielle passed away in 2012, it's about 3 years after Jerron has passed away, you have lunch with mutual friends of ours in New York City.
Musa and Christina, shout out to y'all.
Musa and Christina, right. And so what happens on that lunch?
So we were hanging out in New York City, and I actually was preaching that Sunday on why I still follow Jesus. And I told my story of losing Danielle and how that impacted me in my faith journey. And then we were at lunch, and I asked Christina, since I didn't know her well, hey, what do you do for a living? And she says, oh, I do marketing and communications, but I really want to get my own like communications consulting practice or firm, whatever communications people call it, like Jessica. And I was like, oh, that's like a good idea, but who's Jessica? And then she was like, well, surely you know who Jessica is. And I was like, oh, wow. And then I went back down memory lane, and I remembered your story. And somebody actually sent me a link to your blog a week after Danielle died. And I didn't read it then because I didn't care about anything at that point. And they weren't trying to connect us romantically or anything. Right. They just wanted to help offer some words of comfort and solace since they didn't know what to say to me. And I went back that night and I read your blog. And by reading your blog, I meant I read like the whole thing from beginning to end. And when I shot you the message on Facebook, I didn't say that because that sounds super stalkerish. But I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, Jessica is like a really interesting person. And when I reached out to you, I didn't know what I wanted from that interaction other than I think she's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Right. On my end, I get this random Facebook friend request and a message, I guess, from you after I accepted it. At first, I was like, do I know this person? Because we had a lot of people, mutual friends in common. And I looked at your relationship status and it said you were widowed. So I accepted the request thinking, oh, this is probably someone who's maybe come across my blog, because that would happen sometimes. They want to connect and build the whole widowed person network. I don't know.
It's a weird network. I got stories on that.
We won't get into that. I know. So, and then I remember kind of seeing your message and smiling to myself that you were kind of like, this might seem kind of random, but your name came up and I thought it would be cool to reach out. It took me a minute to get back to you.
Yes, it did.
Okay. But that wasn't for any reason. I mean, that was just me being me, and anyone who texts me knows it might be 48 hours before I
72,
respond.
But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Anyway. So it was Christina who actually messaged me and was like, oh, we had lunch with this really cool guy, Jordan, and you guys have a lot of common things between you. You're both widowed and you both have these blogs. And I was like, oh, right. I need to go respond. And so I was very happy to respond when I did. And we started kind of messaging back and forth. And I guess we were just talking about what life looked like for us as young widowed people. And then kind of started joking about all kinds of things like Martin episodes. Yes. And talking about things that we were into, like photography and
Before traveling. The record, I had to keep the conversation going.
Oh.
Yes.
Is that how you feel?
You're not a conversation continuer. You were like giving me responses like 12 hours later, and I had to keep it on.
Well, I don't think that that's very fair. I was keeping the conversation going because when I would respond, I would have long responses.
That's true.
And ask questions.
That's true.
It's just that they weren't as timely as you would have liked.
That's true.
Because, I mean, I had things to do.
Apparently.
Anyway, so then we go back and forth and those messages kind of get longer and longer. And then you tell me that you're going to be in DC because you have a ton of friends from that area. Danielle actually grew up in DC.
Born and raised, yeah.
Yep. And then obviously all the people from Morgan State, friends. And so you're like, yo, I'm going to be in town anyway. It would be cool to link up. I know that I'm relatively an internet stranger, but there's people who know me, who can vouch for me. So let's link for coffee or whatever.
Yes. And to be very clear, I absolutely had no intentions of being in DC if you said no. I didn't even know where I was going to stay until I was on the turnpike, the New Jersey Turnpike. And I was hitting on my random friends. Shout out to my boy E. I was like, yo, bro, can I crash on your couch tonight? Because I'm on a pure dummy mission for this weekend. I'll tell you about the details later. And he just was like, those were my friends. They're like, yes, great.
Yep. And so I remember at that point, I'm not even really telling my friends. I'm hanging out because it's like maybe Labor Day weekend. I'm hanging out with friends a bunch that weekend, and I'm not telling anybody that I'm meeting up with you because I'm like, this is
too good to be true.
Yeah, it's just like a really wild story. Like, what are the chances that two young widowed people would meet and it would really
Click.
be a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, he's nice and he's funny but I don't know. So I'm not really telling anybody.
Yeah, I think I only told my sister-in-law, Jasmine. I think she's the only person I told. In a lot of ways, also, Jasmine was like a gatekeeper for me in like who I would consider like someone whose voice was like going to help shape that next part of my life. So like if Jasmine was with it, then I was with it. So I think I told her, it was still with like, Jazz, this probably not going to be nothing, but I'm going to DC.
Right. And I also, at that point, I mean, you were on a journey committed to plant a church.
Oh, word. That's
but
right.
But I also just didn't know what that was going to look like for you. It certainly had never been on my radar to be married to a pastor, to be in a relationship with a pastor, whatever.
It's never been on my radar to be a pastor. So that's another podcast.
So we had that common thread. So anyway, all of that, we're kind of like looking forward to meeting. And we finally do meet up at a restaurant near where I live in DC.
Yeah, shut it down, stayed there for 5 hours, both crying as we told each other our stories, and getting an awkward look from the bartenders as like the chairs are being piled up around us.
Right. And we leave there and I go home. You go to Ease and hang out with him. And you text me and you say...
I shoot another shot. I say, yo, tomorrow night, let's do it again.
Yeah.
And then I knew you were on your phone and then you didn't respond for like a half hour.
How did you know I was on my phone?
Because you always have your phone. Now that I know you, you always got your phone. So I knew you had your phone.
Well, I was actually talking to my mom and she was asking me all about it. Like, how did it go? So I guess I had maybe told her that I was going to be hanging out with you. And she was like, how was it? And I was like, oh, it was cool. Yeah. And she's like, are you guys going to hang out again? I said, I'm not really sure. And then your text message comes through. She was like, okay, gotta go, bye. She like got off the phone faster than she ever has. Super excited. And I really had to think in that moment, okay, if I say yes, let's hang out again, I want to be clear because I could tell that you and I are people like extroverts. And I'm like, did we just have a really great conversation because we like to talk and have conversations with people, or did we like have something else? And I was like, yeah, okay, let's hang out again. So we hang out the next night for like another 6 hours.
At your place, yeah.
Yeah, and we're just talking about all the things. You're telling me about how you're about to move and you're going to be moving in like trash bags.
Yes, how I didn't pack anything.
Horrified.
I was moving 2 days later and I hadn't packed one thing.
That was a red flag. I should have.
That was a bright red. That was a crimson red flag that you did not heed.
Told me your strategy that you were going to move apartments in garbage bags and I should have known.
Black plastic bags. Those are more durable.
Oh my gosh. And you talked about like what your vision was for starting a church. And it was very aligned kind of with my understanding of what a faith community could be and should be. And I just remember this moment. You were standing in my living room and I think I was sitting on the couch. And I just had this moment where I kind of got freaked out. Like almost like what you'd feel if you all of a sudden got dizzy. I was like, what is happening right now?
That's the sauce right there.
No, my gosh. You weren't saying anything consequential, but I was looking at you and I was like, I really like this man and I have no idea exactly why.
I mean, there's reasons why.
There are reasons why, but in that moment, I didn't really know you. And I just felt this like really strong connection and affection for you. And I was like, whoa. And so anyway, you leave and I'm like, whoa, God, what in the world? And at that point, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm very grateful in that moment because I've just been wowed in that moment. Like, wow, God, you did something that I didn't think was possible. And, I don't know what is going to come of this, but if nothing else, I'm super grateful to be reminded of how you can move and do things beyond kind of what I can hope for or imagine.
That's real.
Yeah. And so then you're back in New York because you have court. You've got
Yes.
you're still practicing law at this point.
I am practicing law, falling asleep in courtrooms because we were staying up till 3:00 in the morning on the phone, being a terrible lawyer. Shout out to all my clients who who didn't get the best counsel during those months. But it was that puppy love stage where we were like talking all day and all night, all the time, going back and forth to DC. And I think I knew pretty early that you were very special. And not that you have a lot going for you in life. You're smart, you're funny, you're pretty, and all these different things. But it felt very easy. It didn't feel like we were forcing anything, even though I'm sure from the outside it looked like, yo, they're moving pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it's probably hard for people to imagine. I think it was maybe just a couple weekends after that, my mom was in town and you happened to be in town to celebrate a friend's birthday. So you got to meet my mom and my godmother and a whole bunch of extended family.
Oh, yeah, the whole crew.
And then a couple weeks after that, I think I was in New York meeting your parents, your extended family, going to have dinner with Jared and Jasmine, your brother and sister-in-law.
Yeah, and then Thanksgiving a couple months like after we met. Yeah.
Right. So we were doing all the things. And I mean, I think we defined the relationship around my birthday. So like
on your birthday.
6 weeks after that first meeting.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember being on a trip with my mom and I bought a dress that I could wear to get married in probably 2 weeks after that. So 8 weeks after we had met in person.
Yeah.
Just kind of feeling like, yes, this is it.
Yeah. Even like we had conversations not that long after we met when I was like, hey, so if you were like to marry, theoretically, hypothetically, if you were to marry a widower who had a wedding and who loved his first wedding already, would you want like a big production? No shade if you do, but like you'd be cool with like a really scaled down version, right? And you were like, yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And I was like, all right, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is fascinating. Yeah. And so then, I think for us, it's a lot of people ask, well, then when did you guys get engaged? And we didn't really have that kind of traditional, will you marry me moment.
No.
You, again, shout out to Dr. Rath. We're seeing her and telling her about me.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, wait a minute.
Let me see her. I got to put some eyes on her. Make sure she's either, everything you tell me, she's either amazing or she is a sociopath who got your nose wide open. So I need to see her. And we completed counseling with Dr. Rath. And one of the complexities about our relationship is that in a lot of ways, we talk about love as this commitment, this act of the will. But in a lot of ways, there's different levels of compatibility that make loving the other, in some cases, easier than other scenarios. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Rath commented on how ridiculously compatible we were, not just in being widowed. That was like the least of our compatibility, but just in a lot of ways we saw life and were wired.
Right. I think that it's important to say we had these really unique experiences. And I think if you had asked either of us before we met each other, should you get married to someone in 10 months? We would have said no. Yes. And I would never do something like that. Are you kidding me? No way. But then we met each other and it was kind of one of those things of, oh, when you know, I never thought that I would ever say something like that. And I don't think that you always have to have that mentality going into marriage either.
Definitely not.
But it is worth saying that because we were kind of caught up in being wowed by each other and feeling very strongly about each other, that we did take the time to go through premarital counseling. I mean, we had even both been through premarital counseling with our first spouses, but Dr. Rath took us through an assessment where we answered like 500 questions separately with the idea that we could kind of come together and see where the gaps were. And it just so happened that after we took that assessment, there were like 9 categories, and she said, well, either you guys anticipated the other person's answers or you're one of the most compatible couples that have ever come through my doors. So at that point, when she gave us that feedback, we just
like took out our iPhones and were like, well, what does like April look like? What does May look like? What about June? It was just like, well, what weekend can we do it that my grandmother can come down?
Yeah.
It was like a calendaring issue.
Yeah, it was a calendaring thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, let's just.
It was the least romantic engagement. There was no flash mob.
There wasn't a flash mob.
No.
R.I.P. to the flash mobs.
Yes.
I don't think people do that as much anymore.
Don't.
Okay. Yeah, and so then we got married.
We did. Brunch with a twist is what they called it.
Yes.
What we called it.
That's what they being us. Yes. Brunch with a twist. We had it in a big restaurant in Baltimore. There was no procession. There was no like
Nothing.
Me hiding. It was us kind of out in the restaurant as people came in, greeting people mingling and moving around. And then at one point, kind of like, ding, ding, ding. Hey, everybody, put down your forks because we're about to get married right here.
Yeah. Shout out to Mike Kelsey for officiating.
That's right. That's right. And shout out to, we played our video story and the people serving food were like crying and it was amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
Yes. I think people loved it because it was short too.
Definitely.
I know. The best
no
wedding
long
ever.
weddings. Yes.
Yeah.
It was so, yes. It was so great and short.
Over in 2 hours.
Yes.
Right. Go home. So yes. Okay. So now that's a bit of our love story. Are you ready to get into these questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. So first, we talked a little bit about it, but in the whole moving forward to get married and dating, all the things, were there any reservations that you had? Like, were there emotions of fear or just hesitation? What made you feel confident, I guess, in moving forward?
I'm going to say something that's going to sound super deep, but I have no intention of it sounding deep. I had a lot of fear and reservations before I met you. And once I met you, I had no more fear. The apostle would say,
oh my gosh.
There's no fear in love.
Yeah.
So not that I loved you then, or I even knew what loving you then would look like, but I didn't have fear at that point. With everybody else, I was afraid if I would be unfair to them by almost like using them to get a family, but I wouldn't necessarily like love them well or be excited about them. So,
yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think I felt fear that it could all go away. And then I had like crazy fears, probably 6 weeks, like right after we'd made things official, I was having vertigo and I was like, I'm about to die. I was fully convinced. I was like, I just met this amazing man, which I didn't think was possible. And now I have this and I have a brain tumor and I'm going to die. And that's not overly dramatic at all, right?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Anyway, I think I did have some just fear about more so all of it kind of going away.
Yeah, I think a lot of the questions kind of hinted at this, but most of the fear I have is that the worst case scenario will come true. So when I was at the hospital with Danielle, so many times the doctors would tell us like, well, you know, there's like a 1 in a 10 million% chance that it's this. I wouldn't worry about that. Like, you have a better chance of hitting the lotto. Like, our infectious disease doctor told us this. So many other doctors told us like, oh, you have a better chance of hitting the lotto on your way out today than you do of it being cancer. So I wouldn't even worry about that. And I remember like Danielle and I would joke like, well, I'm about to just go to, you know, stop up at 7-Eleven or something and get a ticket because like that's a better chance than you having cancer. So when you actually live a life where the worst case scenario happens and you are one of the 1 in 10 people in America who have this life story in a given year, man, it just makes me very nervous all the time that the worst case scenario can and will happen. And that's something I've been working through a lot with my therapist and in prayer with over the last years, just that's not a fear about dating. It's a fear about life.
Yeah. I think we talk about that a lot, you know, when I think there's a lot of people who've never been widowed who shared that this is their worst fear, that their spouse would die suddenly, early, and that it's even been paralyzing for them to enter a relationship because of this kind of fear. And I think that it's a very real thing that we deal with, even I think with our kids. I know I confess to you about just some of the fears I have with the boys because I've lived those moments of just one false step and the whole story changes.
Yep.
So I'm sure that I look kind of crazy to some people on the playground, but I'm always kind of seeing and visualizing things just going left really quickly. And so I think the biggest thing is being honest and recognizing those feelings, maybe recognizing that they aren't necessarily rational, but also at the same time,
getting them out your head.
And then really just taking them to God in prayer has been the best thing that I can do. And to acknowledge that like God is not out to get us, doesn't have it out for us, like God loves us, and just trying to rest in that as much as I can.
Yeah. So much of my life story and your life story, people have felt like, oh man, like I've been blessed so much by your resilience through suffering. And what that kind of does to me a little bit sometimes is make me feel like, well, God, the best way you want to use me is make my life miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So I live with a constant fear. It's less now than it was a decade ago, but a constant fear that, oh, like God is really, he wants to get the glory out of your life, Jordan. He's going to make you like miserable. Mm-hmm. And I know that's theologically not true. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's true for other people. But for me, I really do wrestle with that a lot.
Yeah.
So that's a fear that I have. Not that like, in dating you that, you weren't going to like me or something.
Yeah. And I was listening to an interview with a woman who has cancer, and she read an excerpt of her book where she kind of was documenting and walking down all of her different thoughts about not being there for her husband when she dies, not being there for her kids. And where she lands it is, but I'm here today, and I think that is also a comfort that I take when I feel those things. I'm like, but you're here right now today, and the kids are here and safe right now and here today, and try to be as present as possible, because sometimes kind of trying to guard ourselves against the worst case scenarios is just exhausting and chasing after the wind.
Yeah. And fear is so paralyzing, and it just robs you from actually being present in any given day. And it makes it impossible to like enjoy a day at the playground, a day getting donuts, anything, because you're always imagining what could go wrong. And what ends up happening is you actually miss out on the moments that are right in front of you. So that's really good.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people ask us about, does the pain of losing a spouse dissipate? Does it change your relationship or your level of trust with God?
That's real. I would say pain dissipates for sure in the loss of a spouse, the loss of anything. If you properly grieve anything, grief is the mechanism by which your body recovers and heals. And it is very difficult to go through grief, but to grieve well, to not stuff things down, to not mask it or try to drown it in alcohol or mask it with something else. To do that, grief is a really healing process. It's what God has given us to heal from loss and pain and the brokenness of this world. So I think the pain of losing Danielle lessened, and then the journey of trusting God has been a decade-long process. And I imagine that it will be prayerfully the next 6 decades of my life, still wrestling with that. But I still struggle with the fear that God is going to yank the rug from under my feet. So like there was this one period where Danielle she was doing terribly, and then she started taking chemotherapy. And I remember the doctors just being like, they couldn't believe how well she was doing, and she was in remission. And Columbia is a teaching hospital, and they would have so many doctors that would like rotate their medical students in and out to see this miracle patient who was on death's door and now was in remission. And I was like so happy. I've never been happier in my life. And to have it all come crashing down really did mess with me. And it just didn't feel fair. And there's different parts of the story that made it feel like it was just unnecessary. So like one part of the story that I don't tell too often is we pull up to the hospital the morning Danielle passed away, the morning she died, and she stopped breathing. And she stopped breathing as soon as we pulled up in front of the ER. And I've always wondered, like, God, if it would have been 5 more minutes, just 5 minutes, if we left the house 5 minutes earlier, if she just breathed for 5 minutes or more, I would have never had to witness the worst things I've ever seen in my life, of like me carrying her into the ER like a crazy person, screaming, watching them do all that stuff, you know, to try to revive her. And that definitely played with that was a huge challenge to my faith. Is like, God, that's just mean. That's just cruel. Like, I already did everything I could. I tried to love her. I tried to pray. We set calendar reminders. We fasted. We asked people to pray. And it's one thing if you didn't heal her, but like to make it go down like that. And when people feel like God has turned their back on them, I'm like, I get it. I feel you. So that's probably been a bigger wrestle in terms of trusting God, of like, it just felt so arbitrary. Now, 10 years later, I've had a renewed sense of who I know God to be. And it's not the God who won't let terrible things happen. Nor is it the God that wants you to have terrible things to happen or needs terrible things to happen. So it's been a whole journey.
That's so good. Yeah, I mean, I think the pain of losing the person does dissipate. The interesting thing, though, is sometimes the pain of the pain is what gets me. Like sometimes just thinking about how much it hurts will bring me to tears.
Yeah.
Thinking about myself crying on the bathroom floor, you know what I mean? Thinking about how numb I was in that moment can make me sad. And sometimes just thinking about Jerron not really knowing those were his last moments of life, and me not being there with him.
Yeah,
and
you talk about that a lot.
Why God wouldn't allow me even a final goodbye. So I think there's pain for sure in missing the person. But I do think, I mean, connected to this question is probably, what about like the love and affection for the person? I think maybe people wonder about that. And we definitely love Danielle and love Jerron, but you know, it's not the same as when they were alive 10 and 12 years ago.
No, of course not.
So I don't know, it's the love has shifted for sure, just because of the time that has passed between when we were in relationship with them. But there's still this deep admiration. There's still this deep appreciation for who we are as a result of who they were. And so I think that will remain with us forever.
Yeah, and a protection. Like whenever people interview me for stuff, I don't really care how I'm always presented, but I'm very, very, very careful of how people would present Danielle. And I would guard that like a pit bull. So I think, yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
Yep.
All right, let's get to some lighter stuff.
Okay, yes, I know. I want to get through some of these questions. Let's talk about dating. Let's talk about marriage. But I do think it was great that we got to get into some of that stuff too.
Definitely.
Because I think a lot of people haven't necessarily heard all that from us. So thank you for sharing. Okay, so I'm going to just move through these questions, Jo. Let's do it. Okay. What are things a single person should be doing to prepare for their future life partner?
That's a good question. I think so many people, whether they say it or not, like have lost hope that God could blow their minds and that they could really, truly be fulfilled in walking on mission with a person who loves Jesus and loves them. And so because of that, I feel like it's hard for them to stay single. like really single, like not attached to someone who they know is not a good fit for them long term. So my biggest recommendation would be that in your singleness, to try with all your might to not waste your time on people that you know you have no business dating or being with, and truly just hope that God is able to actually do something that could blow your mind.
Yeah, man. I think that single people should definitely spend time. We've talked a lot about this in this sermon series, doing the emotional work to know themselves well.
Amen.
I think there's so much beneath the surface that we don't reckon with, that we don't feel fully, that we shove down. And I think I said this on one of the earlier episodes, that a lot of times, even as if the person is dating, they're looking at all those people trying to figure out, is this what I want? Is that what I want? And they would have such greater clarity if they were very clear about who they are, what they feel, if they know themselves, but knowing yourself, I think, takes spending time with yourself. So I think that's one thing that it's not to be like a hermit.
Yeah, and doing the hard emotional work of actually knowing what's going on in your inner world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real.
I think it's also good to practice good emotional health in your friendships and with the family members and people that you have.
Yeah, it's not a light switch you're going to flick on one day.
Right.
If you don't know how to do conflict resolution now, you're not going to know how to do it.
Right. If you don't know how to have that difficult conversation with your family member or your friend when they disappoint you or whatever, then it's going to be equally hard, if not harder, in a marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What dating decisions did you make that best supported your success as a married couple? What dating decisions did we make that best supported our success as a married couple?
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
I feel like we did a lot of things that were helpful for us. I don't know.
I think the values assessment and therapy sessions definitely contributed to our success because some of those things, even categorizing, values around money, values around how we spend our time. I can still remember that assessment that we took and the different areas that we were asked about. And, oftentimes two people come into a marriage and they even think we should be spending all of our time together. And someone else is thinking we should be spending very little time together. And so I feel like that values assessment was really helpful in that dating stage.
Yeah. And I think getting a good definition of what marriage was, and we had some premarital counseling stuff before, but having a really clear definition of what marriage truly was about and the purpose of it, that it wasn't for Jordan's self-fulfillment. And once I realized that, and I think I realized that more powerfully in our dating than I did when I was dating Danielle. I just didn't know. I kind of viewed marriage then as like, oh, this is a path to my fulfillment. And when I viewed it like that, it really robbed the power of it. So having some counseling before we got married and really reading some books and stuff like that was really helpful to clarify that for me.
Yeah. I also think that when we realized that we were serious about each other, which was very early on for us, we spent a lot of time with each other's friends.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, with each other's families. So we were very good at, if I was coming to New York to visit from DC, we had a whole agenda of different people for me to meet. Like, I want you to meet this childhood friend. I want you to meet this person. I want you kind of meeting the people around me. And we were very intentional about that too.
Yeah.
What would you say to the person who has had a lot of bad dates, is waiting to meet somebody? What would you say in terms of helping them stay encouraged to find the right person?
I don't have a really good answer to this other than just I want to acknowledge the weight of unmet expectations and how painful that could be. And the most thing I could say, the best thing I can say in terms of advice is that you should never bear that alone. And you definitely need friends to help you carry that, to truly divide your sorrows and to multiply your joys. And if you're carrying that by yourself, it's going to be too heavy. Yeah,
that's good. I think I agree. It's so hard because the ambiguity of it all and not knowing if someone might show up in 6 months or 6 years from now. Like or ever. I mean, I vividly remember feeling that when I was widowed, and I can imagine some people might be like, "Oh, but you were in your 20s. Like, of course you had a whole future." But
one of the funny things, not haha funny, but the difference between widows and widowers get treated like really nicely because like, oh, well, he's a guy that is like faithful and will like stick by a woman.
Oh, yeah.
And
people are dropping off food.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Men treat widows like she must be weird. Like, or she's probably a little bit crazy, or I don't want to live in this dude's shadow. So it wasn't like
I think
people
the
were
last
beating,
thing you just said is ding,
I don't want
ding, ding.
Yes, be beating down your door.
Yeah, I think dudes didn't want to live in the shadow of my late husband.
Yeah.
And so when
and
it would
Jeron's
come
like
up in conversation, it's like I could see their eyeballs darting back and forth like, I think I can make it to the exit in like 7 good paces if I just keep my head down.
Got a busy day at work tomorrow morning. Let me head out.
Yeah. Anyway, in terms of staying encouraged, I will say that I had no idea that I was going to meet you in August 2012. And my whole life got turned upside down. And all that to say, like, you just never know how close or far something good is, and we generally are just one yes away from things changing, like one yes away from the new job, one yes away from the new relationship, whatever it may be.
And we know so many people at Renaissance that were one day single and the next day, I'm like, yo, who was dude with so-and-so? And like, that's our new boo. Like, yeah. And you meet him like, oh, he's a legit dude.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I didn't even have him on my radar. And then now here we are.
Yeah. So I guess the encouragement is to stay open, because I think the thing about it all is that we place limits on God, and we place limits and we put timelines for when things need to happen, right? And most of us, I think, especially young women, often grew up with this idea that I'm going to finish school and then maybe I'll get a college degree and then I'll spend a couple of years on my career and then I'll meet the person. We'll date for 2 years. We'll be engaged for 1 year. All of this will happen before I'm 30 so that I can have my first child. And like, there's a whole, continuum that we have internalized, many of us. And when all of that is not happening, we often start to panic. And I feel like, we've observed that relationships happen in all kinds of different ways. Timelines get blown up all the time. People get married later in life, sooner than they thought, all the different things. And so just kind of not trying to impose timelines on God. It's hard though.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Hard.
It's hard. It's hard. Okay. What did you prioritize in dating that just doesn't matter now?
That's a really good question.
It is.
I wouldn't say it doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter as much. In dating, I was very concerned with how I was presenting myself to you. And now it is what it is, Shorty Rock. I mean, now I say that in jest a little bit, but it is, I'm less concerned with how I present myself. Now I'm more concerned with who I am. So before I did want to listen to you, but I also wanted you to think I was a good listener. And now I want to listen well to people. I don't want to be perceived as a good listener. I want to actually listen well. I want there to be integration in my life, that I'm actually doing the things that I'm being perceived as.
That's so good. I don't know what I prioritize in dating that doesn't matter now.
You didn't prioritize responding quickly to texts. And you still don't.
And I still don't. There we go. That's funny. What advice would you give your unmarried self?
I'm unmarried. I'm a widowed self. Probably different advice.
So you mean pre-Danielle self or your widowed self? Which one are you?
First, I'll say my pre-Danielle stuff, I was young. I don't even know. I would just say, you're stupid. You're young. Go have some chicken wings and watch the Knicks lose. Keep going. My widowed self, I would say, people can live 40 days without food, 2 days without water, but not 1 second without hope. Don't ever lose hope.
Wow.
Don't ever lose hope in God.
Mm-hmm. Advice I give my unmarried self would be to enjoy moments where I could pick up and do exactly what I wanted to do.
Oof. Just leave.
I like you a lot, Jordan, and I like doing a lot of things with you. But it is sometimes hard that, especially even we have children on top of that, but just the coordination that's required to make sure that we're good and that we stay on the same page. I do not have the freedom to kind of pick up and go. So certainly for the single friends that we have, I'm always encouraging them to it's a Wednesday night
just
and
leave.
You want to just get up and go. It's not to engage in all kinds of crazy behavior, but just to want to get up and go to some concert at 11 p.m., particularly in New York City, all the things that are going on. Yeah, I would say just do the things. So yeah. How do you think people dating should go about identifying the difference between red flags and human imperfections?
That's a really good question. Everybody has imperfections, be it sins, wounds, weaknesses, or damages that will be revealed over time. The longer you spend with somebody, you'll realize this person really has weaknesses in this area, or they're been wounded by their parents or by a previous relationship. So those are not something to be alarmed about. And to the perfectionist out there waiting for someone to not have any imperfections, you're going to be a very lonely person for a very long time if that's what you're waiting for, the perfect person. Red flags to me are dishonesty, not just dishonesty with me, but dishonesty with yourself. And because you can't be in a relationship with a liar. It's impossible to be in a relationship with a liar. And if someone is unwilling to reconcile with things within themselves, even unintentionally, then that's just a big red flag. And to my sisters out there, red flags, a couple that I can think about, guys who I would be really sad if you brought this dude to church. A guy that won't introduce you to people that he's really close to after, not saying week one, but after a certain period of time, if he's still unwilling to introduce you to his family and stuff like that, that's just a huge red flag. Mm-hmm. And to his close friends, he's doing a double life at that point, in my opinion. A red flag is someone who turns on Jesus just because if he hears you go to church and he or she wants to turn on Jesus at that point and be something that they haven't been, not saying that they're not now curious or open.
Yeah, there's a difference between the person who's maybe saying, oh, you're into this? Yeah, I'll go along and check that out with you. That's different.
We hear that a lot. I mean, some of that sometimes is really great. People really turn out to have meaningful encounters with Jesus. But yeah, someone who just is faking the funk just for your attention. A couple I can think about right now.
Yeah. I would also say just how people show respect to or disrespect to the people around them. I tend to think that is a red flag. How the person treats the service person, how the person talks to their parents, those kinds of things. Because I think the intimacy of a marriage, it being your closest relationship, that's where you're probably going to talk the absolute craziest. And so if you hear a person talking super crazy and disrespectfully to people around them, to me, I think that's just a red flag for, well, as I get closer and closer to this person, how are they going to talk to me? I think the other red flag I'd say is if you try to offer up honesty and vulnerability and the person does not handle that well, they really kind of trample on you or just have no interest, it seems, in changing or just talking through that, I feel like that's really hard.
Yeah.
And that will continue to kind of
fester
and repeat itself in a relationship.
And that's some of the most painful conversations that couples I know have, married couples, when one person really, really wants to have a conversation. And it's a form of abuse to not engage with someone when they really want to have a conversation, or they really are bothered by something and they're really vulnerable about something. And the other person just either disregards it, sweeps it under the rug, says, we'll talk about it later, or tramples on it more aggressively. That's like a really painful thing. And that's something that I would keep my eyes wide open about that in dating relationships. Yeah. Because that's something that a person needs to grow in individually. It has nothing to do with you. That's something that person needs individual growth, counseling, therapy, whatever the process is, to be able to handle their emotions. Because most of the time that person has no handle on their own emotions. So it's like giving them a Ferrari. It's like giving them a race car, a Formula One race car, and telling them to drive it around the track. Like, they can't handle that because they can't handle their own emotions. So since they can't handle their own emotions, you're trying to give them yours. They're like, it's like a hot potato. They don't even know what to do with it. So they'll find some way to get rid of it as quickly as possible. And again, there's a lot of people who I know, and really for a variety of stages in marriages where that's happening, and that's something that they're working through. Mm-hmm. And it's not impossible to overcome. And I've seen a lot of growth happen in that. But in dating, that's something that I would be very cautious about moving forward with, unless a person could do that. Yeah,
because I think the thing is, I've seen people withholding honest conversations, like honest hurt, because they don't want to mess up the relationship.
Yep. Get along to go along.
Yeah. Get along to go along. And the whole thing is like, do you really want to pursue that kind of dating relationship? Do you really want to see that through to marriage, where your feelings are hurt and you don't feel like you can say that without it kind of blowing the whole thing up? Like, if we can't be vulnerable with each other, like if I can't trust that I might even just get a simple, I can see where you're coming from. You don't have to agree with me. But if I can't even get to that point, it just feels like we're going to be stunted in our growth and intimacy. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now, what about advice on physical boundaries in Christian dating relationships?
Yes, Lord. We're going to get to it. Let's get to it. Physical boundaries. There's been like a lot about like purity culture, and people have all these different expectations and stuff that they grew up with growing up. Physical boundaries are for your good. Like, if you're driving on the highway and they have those boundaries on the side of the bridge, they're to keep you from going off the bridge. Mm-hmm. And like, so I first want to think about boundaries as being like a really good and helpful thing. But just being perfectly honest, in our own relationship, we got married in 10 months, partly because we felt we were compatible, and also partly because we were like, I see the end of the road and I got to get there. And
to keep it holy, you mean?
Keep it holy.
Sexually.
Keep it holy. Yes. Because I did know at that point I was going to plant a church, and I really did not want to be, I wanted to be able to hold on to a testimony that said I honored God with my body to the fullest capacity that I was able to do. And I think God can redeem anything. But one thing that was necessary one thing that I really felt passionate about was wanting for us to walk through that. But we really did struggle in a lot of ways. It wasn't an easy road. It was crazy that one night I would always tell my friends. So I would always tell my friends, like, when Jessica was coming in town or when I was going to DC, to hold me accountable. And I have some really great brothers who held me down for accountability. But I think, like, boundaries are like, they're very easy. You know what you're not supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. You know what you're not supposed to be doing. If you have to ask it, the answer is no, you shouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. So there was one time we were at the house, my apartment on 121st Street, and it was 1:00, you know what I'm saying, in the morning. We went out for dinner, had a glass of wine. It was a good time. And boundaries were being crossed that should not have been crossed. Not the boundary, but, the preliminary boundaries before we drove off the bridge were being crossed. And then somebody rang the doorbell. Yeah. Some random figure, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, like at 1:00 in the morning, just rang the doorbell. And I ran to the window to see who it was. And they just like ran down the street. They just ran away. And I like still get like chills thinking about how wild that was. But But I was like, yo, that was an angel. That was the Holy Ghost inspiring that stranger who had a Popeyes bag in his hand to stop us.
Everybody straightened up right then.
Oh, straightened all the way up.
Yeah.
Straight up.
So, okay, right. It's definitely not easy, but I think it's important to say that we had a conversation from jump that was what we wanted for our relationship, to abstain until marriage.
Yeah. You set boundaries in the light that you can maintain in the dark. Yeah. You don't set the boundaries at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily like the conversation that people have to lead with on their first date. But I do think if you want to succeed in this area, I do think you have to be clear with the person you're in a relationship with.
Yeah. And you need, like, what is the actual accountability structure you have in practice? Mm-hmm. So, like, if you're in a DNA group, your DNA group needs to know exactly what's going on. And you need to give people a hunting license to ask you those questions. So I had friends who I was like, yo, you got the hunting license, just ask. They knew they had permission to ask me those questions. And I knew they were going to ask me those questions. Mm-hmm. So whenever you would come in town, I knew exactly. Monday morning, one of my annoying friends was going to call me and be like, yo, how was this weekend? Because I told him to ask me. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's not just a boundary to keep you from like physically doing something, but it's also like, what is your community looking like? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's a huge boundary to have in place.
Yeah. Really good. Okay. And then somebody asked, where are all these single great men Jordan keeps referring to?
Yo, they in the building, man. They are in the building.
The funny thing is people are asking me, like, as if what you say is something that comes out of my mouth. And I'm like, well, I don't know exactly. But then, listen, I got you some receipts.
Back me up.
J.O.
Back me up.
Because I was like, well, maybe there is some truth to this. I got to go. I got to go to the records. I'm a data person. And so I went and looked at all the men who are in DNA groups right now. And there's like a little over 100 men in DNA groups. How many would you guess are single?
25.
More than 50, almost 55.
Wow. Look at that. And that's just the DNA groups.
That is true.
That probably makes up like half of our church.
I doubted Jordan, and so did some of my single sisters.
Now look at that.
But we need to find these single men. Apparently.
I know where they at.
You know where they are.
They serve in Renaissance Kids. So if you want to meet, you got to come serve Renaissance Kids and do setup.
That is hilarious. Please don't say that. Oh, man. Okay. Let's talk about marriage.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's talk about like the nitty gritty day-to-day stuff. Because so many times on Instagram, we get the highlight reel, we get the photos of the trips, we get the pictures sometimes of our kids smiling and whatever, it might look all dandy. But like, how is that nitty gritty things that we have to learn to accept about each other and work on, the things we don't like about each other? What does that look like?
Over the last 9 years, I've had to let go of the Jessica I made up in my mind and love the Jessica who I'm married to. Mm. And the Jessica who I'm married to is a woman with just like everybody else, she has real sin in her life, not anything egregious. Mm-hmm. You will always miss the mark and you have weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And to know who you are, to learn your story, over the last couple of years, I've been like, oh, wow, like that weakness makes a lot of sense. And it's not my story to tell, but one of these days you can tell it. Just in general, to learn who you are and your weaknesses. I'm like, wow, like Jessica, she does this because of this. And it's not something that she's always choosing to do. Mm-hmm. And I know I have weaknesses and I have different things that you have to, fight through. So, but that's what love is. Like, love is not Instagram. Love is not the trip to California. Love is, I see Jessica, she has weaknesses. She does not deserve this. And I've committed to love her. And I'm going to do the thing and trust that my feelings are going to catch up. So that has been the mantra for my life for the last 8 years is I'm going to move with an action of love and I'm going to trust that my emotions will catch up. And 100% of the time, my emotions have caught up. But I do not rely on my feelings to dictate my day-to-day interaction with you. I don't do it every single day. There's definitely some days where I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I don't do it. Mm-hmm. And there's days where I'm like, yo, J.O., you have to love her. that's the commitment I made. And I moved from that commitment, and I just trust that my emotions are going to catch up. So I recognize your weaknesses. I think that gives me a lot of empathy for you instead of resentment. And then, yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think this is such a great question, because it is true that you have these moments, and we talk about this a lot, like feelings come, they go, they come back again. And that can be the positive ones. That can be the negative ones too. Like I can look up and be like, oh my gosh, he gets on my nerves or whatever. And then the next moment I might feel different and I might be back again. I think that one of the best things that helps with all of that, I think, is some of the rhythms that we have set up in our relationship.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Really help. So because the nitty gritty, as I think of it, it's like the pressures and stress of things are breaking in the apartment. The kids are screaming, like the child is doing something that doesn't make sense.
There's
The
crayons on
emails
the
are
wall.
going off.
Yes.
Slack is going off. The phone is ringing.
The house is dirty.
The house is dirty. There's reggaeton blasting from the street. Like there's a lot of things happening. And that also, like, you're kind of in this pressure cooker and there's outside pressures. And then the person makes a decision, your spouse makes a decision in a way that you would not do it that way. Like, why would you do that? We're just different people who make different decisions and think differently and move differently sometimes. But I think that some of the rhythms we have set up really help hold those moments in proper light. So one, that with all of the things we have to manage, that we try to set times specifically to talk about those things. Like in the height of our stress, which was probably when our youngest son was about 6 months old, there was not much sleep being had. There was a lot of work that you had on your plate. We were kind of like breaking down. You're exhausted.
Migraines, vertigo
you were
for a
having
month.
migraines, vertigo, all the things. And you'd come home and I'm like, well, we have to talk about this and we have to figure out this and we need to get our
Money.
health insurance and pay this tax bill. Right. Exactly. And deciding that what we really needed was a family meeting to kind of address all of those things, which would then free up more moments to simply enjoy one another.
Yes, because you would come to bed at 11:28 and be like, what do you think we're going to do about this IRS bill? And I'm like, yo, I just was able to calm down. I do not have the energy for that. The family meeting has been amazing.
Yeah.
Because now, we do it like a real meeting at WeWork, go to the whiteboard. We put everything that we need to talk about there. And we spend hours sometimes unloading everything in that one meeting. And we know we're going to talk about it. And we have our plan. And that way, that night for dinner, we can eat dinner.
Yeah.
And say, how are you doing?
Yeah. When it's like bleeding into every interaction, it takes away and robs from some of the fun that those moments could have. And then we also try to have like weekly kind of time together to really ask each other questions. How are you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
What's your high? What's your low? What's the Lord been teaching you?
Yeah.
What are your hopes for the future? And I think that helps kind of dim the drudgery of the nitty-gritty moments as well. Okay. In what ways have you become more like each other? And in what ways have you had to prioritize and keep your individuality in marriage?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I think we kind of have a joke with each other about we can like different things because sometimes we do kind of default into expecting the other person to have the same preference that we have or like the same thing. And then we kind of just make a joke reminding each other, like, we can like different things. It's fine.
Yeah, like the night of my fantasy basketball draft, I've never been happier. Maybe when my kids were born, but beyond that, I love it. I love the experience of the draft, eating chicken wings with my friends, talking about players. And you come around the corner, you're like, why is this dude so happy? He is like cheesing right now. And I'm a simple guy. I like to go eat chicken wings and watch the NBA. And I don't care if anybody else likes that.
Yeah. I think one way that I would say that I've become more like you is in trying to get more in touch with my emotions and to lead more with vulnerability. I feel like you've led with vulnerability in our relationship, and that's opened up space for me to try to do the same in the times that I need to. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned from you, or how I've become more like you.
I've become more like you in wanting to do more experiences and to like enjoy outdoors and enjoy different activities, where before I would do it just because I knew it would make you happy. Now I'm like, oh, that would be cool. And I actually look forward to it.
Yeah. But I think we try to be individual. Like, we try to have our own solo days away to do exactly what we want. Like, your day away looks like binging some TV show and eating Sour Patch Kids.
Yes, all day long.
Mine probably looks like gallivanting around the city, eating good food, some random like ice cream flavor from some shop in the East Village or whatever. And we try to respect that and let each other lean into that too.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, I spent 30 of the 40 years of my life not knowing who in the world Jessica Alicia Moreland was. Jessica Jackson, Jessica Rice.
I've had many names.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I'm an individual, and I think it's necessary to maintain who you are and not to lose that, or even cower under the expectation. Because a lot of times what happens in relationships are people just expect that, well, of course, since we're married, we have to be best friends. And like, where does it say that you have to like all the same things? That's miserable to put that expectation on somebody. You don't have to like all the same things. You have to be committed to each other. You have to be deeply connected. You have to develop and nurture the intimacy in your relationship. And you can do that without liking 99% of the same activities and fun things to do. And you will do more things in common in the pursuit of intimacy and connection with the other person, and appreciating what the person has done to cross that bridge to come over to you in that process. But I think this whole concept of like being best friends and being, so similar is very overblown and sometimes like really unhelpful.
Mm-hmm. That's good. A lot of people ask what it's like loving someone who is widowed, and like, do we relate to each other better because of our experiences? Are we ranking, I guess, our former spouse against our current spouse?
That's hilarious. It's so funny because like this is probably the question we get the most. And it's really hard to explain how I could hear you talk about how Jerron was your dream man and to not feel threatened at all by that. And it's something that I don't know that we can adequately explain, but under no I've never felt threatened by Jerron. Mm-hmm. I've never felt threatened on his anniversary, the anniversary of your wedding, an anniversary of his death, his birthday, for you to downplay that. Because in a lot of ways, it's like, yeah, what kind of person would Jessica be if her best friend died and she just kept it pushing? Like, oh well, on to the next. Like, that's really messed up. Like, wouldn't you want a person who was deeply formed by that and still felt deep love for that person? I would. Mm-hmm. It just in a vacuum, I would definitely want that. And also the ability for her to trust that her heart can expand and that she can love me deeply. And so I think that's a big thing of trusting that your heart has expanded, not to like evict, sweep Jerron out, but to say like, oh, Jessica loves me because our hearts have an ever expanding ability to expand.
Yeah. I think we tend to live in a this or that kind of world, yep. Right? And I think what you said is so true. The best thing I can liken to is when a parent has one child and then a second child is born or a third is born. Like, we don't say, so you must love that first one and then you gave the leftovers to that second and third child. Like, a parent's heart expands to love all of their children. And I think we underestimate the heart's ability to expand. Like, there's more love to be given. It's not like, whoop, I poured it all out in this place and there's nothing left to give to you. But I mean, obviously, I think you experiencing the same kind of devotion, love, passion for your first spouse helps with knowing that I can have loved Jerron and love you. I mean, you're kind of experiencing it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
so that helps as well.
There was that one day on Danielle's birthday, it was snowing outside and we went to the cemetery, and I went to the cemetery by myself. We went to the cemetery together, and you were staying in the car.
It was when we were dating, before we got married.
Yeah, before we got married. And you were just going to remain in the car as I went out and just spend however much time, however long I wanted to out there. But it was like snowing really bad, and it was like the wind was picking up. So I couldn't find a grave. And I was like so bothered. And I just was like so bothered. And then you came out and you just sat with me as I cried. I don't even know if I found a grave yet, or maybe helped me find it. I don't know what it was, but yeah, it wasn't like you were like, here this boy go crying over his dead wife. You know what I mean? But it was like, it felt like you understood where I was in life, and that didn't threaten how truly excited I was. I mean, because that was probably, the day before New Year's. I don't know if we had New Year's plans that year. But yeah, I mean, we would be having fun the next night together, or probably that day. I'm sure we went out and had a great time together. But yeah, it didn't threaten the other.
Yeah. I think it's like a very good example of kind of the tension that we often find ourselves in life, that joy and pain coexist with each other. Like, isn't that all of life? And so I think our relationship has modeled that in lots of ways too.
Yeah, to keep it all the way alive though, it was easy for me to join in your story about Jerron, and less easy for other guys that you dated. And I think a big piece of that was I knew how much the person who I loved in Jessica was because of Jerron. Like, you were who you were because of your life in totality and of its experiences. What was less easy for me, and something that I've embraced over time, is all of the relationships that Jessica has had have formed her. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Mm-hmm. The decisions that she would make again and the decisions she wouldn't make again. Mm-hmm. They've all brought her to this place that I've met her and I fell in love with her. And embracing all of those experiences in her life has been super helpful for me to even know who you were, and also for us to connect to each other, to ask you questions. And, two rules: never ask a question you don't want to know the answer to, but to ask you real questions, to learn who you are without judgment. And I think that's actually been something in the last 4 or 5 years that's been massively helpful.
Yeah.
To get to know who you are.
Yeah.
And your motivations. And what was I like, to ask a non-judgmental question of you? So that is something that did not come as easily as about Jerron, but it's equally, in some ways, equally helpful.
That's so good. That's so good. Are there any lessons you think we've learned about marriage, relationships in general, each other during the pandemic?
Oof. Life in a pandemic. Do not recommend. 1 out of 10. I think the pandemic was a great accelerator, or an accelerant. So for everything, the pandemic just poured gasoline on it. So if there was passion, then the pandemic poured gasoline on that passion, and it erupted. If it was strife, a crack, lack of sympathy and empathy, then the pandemic and all the pressure just put that on that. It just really, so I think actually that a lot of relationships, friendships, parents, and certainly spousal marriages, they're experiencing the stressors of what the pandemic has done. And I don't know that next year, this time, they'll be feeling those same stressors. So in a lot of ways, I think what people are experiencing right now was so intense that it will be unhelpful to judge your relationship by the pandemic standards, because you've never lived through anything like this, and preferably will never live through anything like this ever again. So I would wait for people to make major decisions, or to put the nail in the coffin, or to think that everything is amazing because we just lived through the pandemic and we should take it one day at a time.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm even going to add to that. I thought that was great. What do we do to stay connected as we both grow and change? I think that our weekly check-ins help a lot with that, just to kind of hear what is going on in your world, in your heart.
And by weekly check-in, you mean a time where we get away for a couple of hours and we have an uninterrupted, unhurried, no phones time of check-in.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. It's generally our Sabbath time. Our kids are in school. We get some time. We're done with work and our Slack notifications are turned off, and we just hear from each other and ask each other questions about what's going on with the other person. And I think that that definitely helps, because it's in those moments that even we start dreaming together about, oh, well, maybe we could take this trip next year. Or, you know what, I've really been thinking based on this conversation I had with my brother, I would love to do this. Or
I'm really sad about this thing, or I'm really mad about this thing, or I'm really happy about this thing.
Yeah. So I think that things are happening in each of our lives. We are probably a bit unique in that we work at the same place. So there's a lot of overlap there.
Yes, I work for you. You're my boss.
Whatever. The other day, Jameson was like, so daddy pays you? I'm like, no, he does not. Get out of here. Anyway, so yeah, I think that that's a big piece of it, is just connecting and being honest with each other, even as that growth and change is happening. Kind of along the same lines, how do we deal with like the dynamics of marriage and how love morphs? So, you know, this person says, right now, I'm more in love with my spouse than I ever have been, but there's been times when I resented my spouse.
I don't think love morphs. I think our affections morph. I think every single day we have to wake up with a commitment to love the other. And that is very difficult. Some seasons it's very easy when you're just, you know, overflowing with affection and romance and passion. And, you know, there's not a stack of bills threatening you or health concerns. And other times it's a really very difficult choice. So I don't want to minimize the choice, but love is always a choice that you make. And sometimes it'll be easier to make it than others, but trust that if you keep making that choice, that affection will follow.
Yeah.
Eventually.
I often think of it as, you know, the goal in marriage, the design of marriage is oneness. And so a lot of times in moments where I might feel resent, where I might be angry about something, where I might, whatever, be bothered, I really remember the concept of oneness. And I ask myself, the action that I want to take right now, does that put me closer to oneness or further away from oneness with Jordan? Like, I evaluate the actions and the actions that I want to take through that lens and filter. Will saying this thing take me towards oneness, or will giving Jordan the cold shoulder take me toward oneness with him, or will it take me away from oneness with him? And that has been helpful for me, because most of the time the answer is no, it's not going to put you toward oneness. You need to collect yourself. You need to process your emotions, and you need to have a big girl conversation about how you feel, how you were hurt, how you were disappointed, whatever it might be. And so I think that a lot of the conflict too is preventable when we really get in touch with what we're feeling and own those feelings and have those tough conversations. Yeah.
Resent is such a big thing. And I was thinking about it earlier. Like, resent in so many ways is unheard frustration. And not everybody has a spouse or partner that is a safe place for those frustrations. Either they brush them away, or they're unwilling to hear them, or they turn them around on you and weaponize them. And my best tool to stay away from resent is to say exactly what I'm feeling, and to hope and pray that you actually receive it well and you don't get defensive or explain it away with logic. And I was thinking about it just now, like, well, what would I do if you were not a safe person to talk to my resent with? I think I would definitely talk to my therapist about it, and I would talk to good, close friends. Not everybody can hold that. I would definitely talk to Aswan about it, like, yo, I'm really feeling like I'm resenting her for this. And actually, I have done that before, where we've gone out to TAV and we're watching the game, and I'm like, bro, I'm tight right now. And not every time, I wasn't always emotionally ready to share it with you, because I was like, if I say this, I'm gonna spaz out. So to even have a person to share that with, a friend, a close friend that you can just trust to say, I'm going to share this with, that truly takes the power away from resent, because now your frustration has been heard. And now it's still a frustration, but now we can do something with that. Ideally, we could take it to a person who can handle it with care, who can say sorry, who can incorporate that into life change. But until we could do that, we need to make sure those unheard frustrations become heard.
That's really good. When it comes to conflict, hard conversations, do you think it's ever good to step away from a conversation during conflict?
Yes. I don't know who it was. I was like, you got to just stay. No, don't stay in it. Because if you're ready to go crazy, leave. Just for a prescribed period of time. A lot of times if I'm super frustrated, I'll just walk around the block. If the kids go crazy or do something, I'll say, Daddy needs a timeout. And I'm going to leave. Or if I'm super frustrated with something, I will go in the other room and take a lot of deep breaths, because I know man's anger does not bring about the righteousness of God. So if I'm super angry, then it's not going to lead to something good. So I definitely think it's wise. However, if I step away, I have to be the one to initiate the conversation.
Right. I was going to say, this comes up in our own relationship. Like, sometimes I'm more freeze or flight. You're more fight, or kind of like, let's talk about the thing. And oftentimes I'm a slow processor, and I'm really thinking about everything that's been said and how I want to respond.
I'll pour out my heart and you'll be like, yeah.
Stop.
Okay.
But like, making sure that we even, sometimes we'll say, like, we're setting a time to come back to this thing. Like,
tomorrow at 8.
Tomorrow at 8, we are going to talk about it. And that is sometimes a missing step. Sometimes, like, you walk away to cool down, but it never gets revisited, and then things fester.
Yeah, so. Definitely. Yeah, it is pretty hard. It's pretty hurtful for you to take a break if you're like overwhelmed or want to separate for a little bit, and then you never bring it back up. Yeah, that feels like that's rough. Because then when I have to bring it back up, I'm like, oh, she doesn't care, because she clearly walked away and didn't bring it back up.
Right. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. Okay. What about a tangible thing we do as a couple and as a family, maybe, to grow in our faith together, not just individually? I would say that I don't know that there's a ton of things that we've done together to grow spiritually. I think that we tend to kind of, you are reading this, you're reading Romans, and I'm going through 1st and 2nd Kings. And then maybe when we have our check-ins together, we're sharing. One of the questions actually that we ask each other is, what has God been teaching you? Or how is God challenging you? But I don't know that we necessarily say, we're going to go through this study together. We haven't done that a lot in our relationship.
No. And we need to do a better job of praying together. A lot of times we tried that, right before bedtime prayer. And
yes.
And I will fall asleep.
Yes.
That's because you pray too long.
You outed yourself as being the one to fall asleep. That's fine. And you get on me for going too long.
It's too late.
I'm just trying to talk to my Heavenly Father. I got a lot on my heart.
Go ahead and pour it out by yourself. I was talking to the back of my eyelids. No, so we need to do. What gets scheduled gets done. So we don't pray together as much as I wish we did, particularly in the hard seasons of life.
I think we pray for each other a lot.
Definitely.
Like, I'm always praying for you.
Yeah.
And I know that you're always praying for me, but we don't do a lot of prayer together.
When life really hits hard, we do. And I think that's a reality of life, that in my distress, I cried to the Lord and he heard me. But in a lot of ways, I know a lot of couples, some of our mentors, they've committed to praying together every single day. And I want to blame it on the kids as to why we don't do that, but we didn't do it regularly before we had kids. So
yeah, it's a goal.
Yes, hashtag goals
for sure. Hashtag goals. Okay, Jo, I think we made it through all the questions.
Yes.
Anything left to say?
Yeah, earlier in the podcast, I mentioned that a lot of my earlier struggles in the last decade have been in trusting God, that God is good. He's a good father. And not that he doesn't want me just to be miserable with my life. So the scripture that has been one of the most profound in my life is something that I have tattooed on my ring finger, Ephesians 3:20. It says, "Now to him who is able to do above or beyond all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus to all generations, forever and ever. Amen."
Amen. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Shout out to you for doing these real love conversations, Shorty Rock.
Thank you.
These have been really good.
Thank you. It's been a real blessing to hear from people. I love how vulnerable and honest people were. And major shout out to the man behind it all.
Behind the scenes.
Who's listening in right now next to us, Mr. Joe Garrett.
The man, the myth.
The man, the myth, the legend. Okay? Like, people have been thanking me for this, but really he's the one that everybody needs to be thanking.
100%.
He takes pictures of me and the guests. We need to get a picture of him.
I am taking a picture of him right now.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, because we couldn't do it without you for sure. As well as a lot of other projects at Renaissance.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this has been fun. Family, I hope you found that conversation with Jordan helpful and encouraging. You know, I was reflecting on how the journey of mine and Jordan's relationship and the start of Renaissance have been so closely aligned. We got married in June 2013 and immediately started gathering people for a future Harlem church plant that at the time we didn't even know would one day be called Renaissance Church. So a lot of the experiences with loss, with handling the simultaneous joys and pains of life, with finding hope and choosing to follow Jesus, even when things don't look the way we want them to, with confronting tough emotions, with knowing God can do far more than what we can hope or imagine. Those things shaped this community called Renaissance. And I hope that if you're a part of Renaissance, you've gotten to feel some of those things. I'm really grateful for Jordan and all I've learned about loving others from him, even when that learning has been uncomfortable because of what it has revealed about my wounds, my weaknesses, and my sin. And I am deeply, deeply grateful for everyone who participated in this series, both the people who were interviewed and all of you who've listened. Thanks again to the talented unsung hero, Joe Garrett, our producer and editor. This particular series is coming to an end, but we hope to do more special podcasts in 2022. And so with that, I'm Jessica Rice. I'm signing off. And family, thanks for being on this journey of learning how to love God and love others well.